Welcome to today's episode of TheSquare. I'm really excited about today's episode. I'm joined by John Higgs,
Hello.
Principal in charge of the MediaLab, also my boss. And you're going to be hosting today's episode. Tell me a little bit about what it's about.
Yeah, well, this could go horribly wrong. This will be the first time for me to host.
Great.
This will be the third
Third
episode that I'm actually in.
Yeah.
But we're coming up on close to 100 episodes, and we have yet to actually talk about just architectural rendering and visualization. And it's something that's been at our core since we started the MediaLab. And it's something I can't even, Ludo will be here later soon, and he can tell you how many a year we do, but it's in the hundreds.
It's a big number,
yeah. It's in the hundreds. And we actually have some people, some experts in from Argentina, from Buenos Aires, that are going to join us in this topic, and it's a partner that we really rely on quite a bit. And
so this whole episode will be in Spanish.
It'll start with about 2 words in Spanish.
Perfect.
and it may go.
Your whole vocabulary will be
may go to Spanish, but they'll totally lose me, and they'll get about half a Ludo because he knows French really well.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, we're really excited. Like they had planned this trip to come down for a while,
Yeah.
and so we just thought this would be a great opportunity to get them on the show and talk renderings, like everything, the past, the present, the future. All that stuff. So
all right, well,
it'll be a lot of reminiscing, I'm sure, because me and Ludo are pretty old and we've been doing it for a long time.
All right, well, let's get it going. Here we go.
Thanks. So poof, through the magic of video editing, we have gotten rid of Brandon.
Yes, that's the right move.
That will be the last one he ever hosts, because this is going to be the best episode ever, right, guys? Yeah. And it'll just be me and Ludo from here on out, so sorry, audience. But no, we talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about, so I'm really excited. Ludo Michaud has been here with us now for a decade. Have we reached a decade?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
A couple months on top of that.
Yeah, and so this is going to be a multi-language, multilingual episode. May get a little French, may get a little Spanish in this. Buenos dias, everyone. And I'm going to bonjour. And I'm going to let Ludo introduce our guest, because he has a long relationship with him.
Hi. I told him not to do that, but it's all right. It's all right. We're going to get there. I want my position to take over Brendan, so I have to act properly, right? We'll start with Martin. Martin Fishman, co-owner of ZAPVIZ Studios in Buenos Aires, Argentina, established about 5 years ago.
2014. That'd be
7 years ago, 8 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Co-owner with his brother, which turns out to be a twin. His name is Nicholas.
Or is this actually Nicholas? We don't really know.
Yeah, we always debate.
Could
Always
be
debate. And also Andy. Oh, I can't say his last name.
His last name is Mogolnicki.
Mogolnicki, that's
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
Andy, Andrew, and Andreas.
Andres.
Andres.
Yeah.
Andreas Mogolkilny. I just
Cut to a
That was pretty
picture
good.
of
That was pretty good. Pretty close.
Yeah, Martin has got a background. Has been doing art.
Oh, we'll get into all that in a minute. Just
In a minute, okay.
Yeah.
So- and
Okay.
why? And this is Julieta Martinez Gocio.
So we actually have been working with them for a long time, but we only use their first names. So we're getting our own Spanish lesson, which I have crib notes for as well. I just figured you were such a good linguist with French that you would do a better job than me at Spanish.
She made fun of my French earlier, so we're clear. We're clear. The French is not helping. But Julieta has been with us with ZAPVIZ for 5 years.
Since the origin?
A little less.
Yes.
than
Okay.
that. No.
3
yeah.
years.
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Could be.
And she's been instrumental in making that partnership work.
Yes.
She's not the owner, but we know she really runs the place.
Yeah.
So you'll figure that out after the end of this interview. She may run this place before too long.
But Julieta is an architect of practice, and is now playing the producer and creative director at ZAPVIZ. Been a great collaboration and very smart lady.
Yep. So what we're going to talk about over the next, 30 minutes to an hour is kind of like, why does this profession even exist? What kind of benefits come out of it, and why should anyone that's watching our show today care about any of this? We'll talk a little bit about what makes good visualization, because I definitely know there's some myths in there, and so maybe we can debunk some myths along the way. And then we'll probably spend way too much time talking about the past, because me and Ludo are very old.
Yeah, we want to.
And we're nostalgic that way, and we like to talk about programs that don't exist anymore, even ones that he coded on. And then we'll get into the present a little bit and talk about that. And then we're going to get into the future of where we think this is going to go. So, the profession of architecture has been around quite a while. I think the first recorded architect was Egyptian. At least that's what they told me in school. Your schooling may be different. You may have gotten a totally different impression of what that is. But first, let's kind of get a little bit of background. So, Julieta, how did you get into this industry?
Okay, so I'm an architect. So when I got my degree, I started working in different architecture studios and mainly doing some plans and stuff.
So tell us, so most of our viewers are from the United States, although now we will have a huge following in Argentina. We're very excited about that, but the process may be a little different. So talk about the education process for being an architect in Argentina.
Yeah, so you have, depending on the college you study, you have 5 or 6 years. Mine was 5 years, and then the 6th year when you can do your thesis.
Thesis, okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds pretty traditional as far as the experience that you would get in the U.S. as well. So when did you fall in love with visualization then?
I think I always liked the graphic part of architecture. I mean, of course, it must be really nice when you have when you get your project built, and it's really nice to see that. But I always like the graphic part of the design process.
So I assume then you worked in a firm for a while
Yeah.
before you decided to come over to the good side.
Yeah.
So what was that
few
like?
of
Were you
them,
just doing design work, construction
Yeah,
documents?
just construction documents mostly. And then, I really needed to have like a more artistic work.
Yeah. So now we kind of understand a little bit more of it sounds like a very similar role to become an architect in both locations. And this is the architecture side of the table. I also went to architecture school. So I'm guessing we're going to get some much more
interesting.
Yeah, I will say interesting. Even though it was
Yeah, I wouldn't
5 or
say
6
that.
years of our lives to get this degree.
Questionable, but interesting.
Yeah. So, Martin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Well, my journey into this industry, it's been a bit unconventional. My academic background led me to business school. And after graduating, after a couple of jobs, I found a job at an architectural studio. And that's where I started working, closely with the architects and the designers and 3D artists.
And what was your role in that firm?
I was in sales and marketing.
Okay. So, sorry to interrupt, but so 2 questions. One is, because I know you personally, and you lived in the States for a while, and you've lived in Argentina most of your life. Where did you go to school? Where did you get your business degree at? Was it
in Argentina?
In Argentina?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lived in Florida when I was a kid. So it was like from 5 to 11. I went to I did a little bit of I did elementary school and a little bit of middle school.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. So continue. Yeah. So you've gone to business school now. You're at an architecture firm.
Yeah.
You don't have an architecture degree.
Yes.
You're doing sales and marketing. So, how do you do that? Like, what knowledge did you have of architecture at the time?
I didn't have much knowledge, to be honest. But my father is an architect, so I'm used to seeing like drawings and sketches that he used to have when he used to practice architecture. So that's when I looked at the work that the architects were doing, I kind of knew what I was looking at, but not really. So that's I had just a little bit of knowledge.
So did you ever have the idea to go to architecture school, or you were like, what Dad does is not for me. He looks bored or frustrated or whatever.
They don't have to study again.
Okay.
I was like, 4 years is enough. So.
And you have a twin brother, he allegedly has a twin brother. Yes. Only a few people have ever seen them both together, which is not really true.
Yes.
They're together constantly. But what did he study?
He actually studied business law.
Okay.
So he's a lawyer.
So does he do all your contracts then?
Yes, he's
Okay.
more on that side of
Yeah.
All right. So continue.
yes.
You're at an architecture firm.
And I'm working with the architects because I need to market and sell their design.
What type of projects is this? Everything or residential?
It was mostly
or commercial.
like mixed use.
Okay.
In Argentina.
Yeah.
So working with them, and I started seeing what the artists were doing, working in with 3D programs, and I was more fascinated with that part of the job than with what I was doing in sales, and
So were they doing that stuff in house, or were they using a third party to do their higher end renders? Let's say.
It was all in house.
Okay.
It was a small studio. And I just started liking the 3D part of it, and after learning to use some of the tools myself, I decided that I wanted to start my own company, but not architectural, but more like just specifically the 3D part of the company. So that's when I founded with my twin brother, and our colleague Andres. We founded ZAPVIZ in 2014.
Been going since, right?
And it's been a journey.
All right, Mr. Ludo.
I'm going to make it fast, okay? I'm going to try. Anybody timing me here? Okay, it is. Okay. I mean, I dabbed with architecture when I was in 10th grade. I was, one of my class was doing technical drawing and stuff. But then I saw, like most of us, Jurassic Park and Terminator and Sherlock Holmes, the young Sherlock Holmes, and other movies like that. And at the time, I was actually becoming a motion graphic artist. But then someone from the past told me, "Hey, there's 3D that just came out and just started," and so on. So I'm like, "Hey, why not?" So I ended up in.
Without giving your age away, you want to give a year?
No.
You were always ahead of your time.
So it was around 94, probably 93, 94.
Okay. Yep.
And the school was, there was like maybe 20 students per year coming out of the country in 3D stuff. There was brand new.
You certainly weren't going to go get a degree in architectural visualization.
No. And so anyway, from there, I graduated in 95, and then went to start working at Softimage, which is a 3D software that used to do 3D.
Wait. Have you heard of Softimage?
No.
Oh, that's not nice. That's not nice. Not here. Not now.
So we do have architects on one side of the room, but we also have a generational gap on this side of the room. So.
So anyway, worked there for a few years. I started as a tester, and then I became more of a trainer and a traveler to evangelize the product. Then I moved on to production because I was very excited about production, making movies. So I moved to Texas. That was 23 years ago now. Moved in Texas, and then.
Well, you're pretty late to the game for architectural visualization side of things, though. You were always doing sets and extensions.
Yeah.
All sorts
In
of
a
things.
way, yeah.
That someone that was an architect might have been doing as well, but like.
Well, in fact, I ended up working with a lot of architects. A lot of architects moved on to 3D and do 3D software and 3D production. In fact, when you work on a movie, mostly the people that do a lot of the modeling, the environment designers and modeling designers are actually architects. Yeah. I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them are. So I always mingled with architects somehow. Fast forward to the present, to about 10 years ago, and I found myself here, full circle. And ended up in architectural.
A lot of architecture.
Now I'm playing a lot with architects and such around. So yeah.
I do think it's interesting. So I'm going to ask a question of all you guys. So when I was in school, I was really good at math and I was really good at art. So everyone around me that wasn't an architect said, "Oh, if you're good at math and art, you should be an architect."
Yeah.
So I am curious, how many do you consider yourself good at math and art?
Not that good at math, but and art I am. Yes.
Yeah. I know your answer.
Yes.
No, it was both, but
He's
they
a-
said
he's a human
they said-
calculator.
They said I should go to 3D. They didn't say anything about architecture.
No, well, my point is actually, and all those people that transition to those set designs, I think probably are, and certainly early on, we'll get into the history, but early on, that math background was such an advantage.
Oh yeah, at the time,
Yeah, of
yes,
course.
yes.
To being, and it wasn't that it was math, but it was that you could do really highly technical things and then still be an artist and use both sides of the brain. So we'll play with that, I think, in a little bit and kind of talk a little bit more about that. But okay, so now we're all
Introduced.
all introduced and
Good.
we've started our careers, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think it? Why do you think? Well, we'll start with Martin first.
Okay.
Why do you think it exists as a profession? What's the need for it?
Well, I think that, well, from a business standpoint, I'm going to say that I think it exists because there needs to be a way for architects to market their projects. And I think the best way is through visualizations. And then for the design process, it's also important. Like I was saying, my father's sketches were more conceptual. And then 3D models that I also saw at home were good, but they took a long time to produce.
Yep.
So that's where I think CGI comes in, and it's faster to do, and also you get more detail for architects and designers to be able to show their design in the best way possible.
Clients, yeah. Because I think like maybe between architects or the design team, you are able to communicate with sketches or fast drawings, but to show a project to a client and for they to understand how it will look, I think it's better with CGI. Yeah.
Well, so you're giving the architects a lot of credit. No offense to all the architects that are watching this, that they can sketch. So I think that's a lost. I mean, we talked about earlier before this that when you were in school, your first 2 years, they didn't even let you do computer renderings because they wanted you to know how to draw first.
Exactly.
But I do think that's an art that's probably lost.
Yeah.
Because we're so fast to get to the computer now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally think it's a mean to an end. I think architects have great ideas, great design, and you rely upon the client's imagination to be able to extrapolate those drawings. So I think the visualization. The visualization of the of the architecture, it became a need because some imagination might not be as extrapolative as others or visionary
I mean,
as others.
the percentage of clients that can read documents,
it's
gotta
very,
be,
very, very, very small.
small single digits for sure.
So then they either get disappointed, don't understand what's happening. They say, no, I don't like this idea. You're like, no, this is the best idea since sliced bread, but then they can't understand it. So they don't. So I think this is where the need came to me from the sketches. Of course, even the sketches can't see. Some people can't see past the line. So you got to help. You got to help the customer.
Well, can you imagine, like, as an architect, you design something. You've had all these meetings with a client. You think you're on the same page. You get the building built. The client goes out there and it's a surprise to them. Like, that sounds the worst.
That sounds
particularly if the surprise is not a good surprise.
Yeah.
Right? So I have a story I was sharing the other day with, like early on in our career. So for me, I definitely agree. It's a communication tool, like primary. Like so everybody's on the same page. This is what our design looks like, And at Corgan, we're designing for the client. It's not we don't have a style, right? So it's not like, oh, we're doing this for ourselves. We're doing it for the client. So it's really important the client understands. They're part of the process as much as anything. So that collaboration. But I love it when designers see their stuff and didn't realize something, right? So like, yes, it's for the client primarily, but we were working on DFW Terminal D, we had done these animations. They had always talked about when you come out of security, which is a compressed area, there was going to be like a release of this compression, and you'd have this great intuitive wayfinding, and you'd see all the gates, and you know exactly where to go. And so we did this animation, and you went through security, and there was a big escalator right in your view, and it blocked the entire view, and it didn't do anything that they wanted it to do, right? So that was a chance that, the designers clearly knew what they were doing, like they put the escalator there.
There was a reason for the, there was a reason for that.
Yeah, there was a reason and flow, but then they were able to see that and make a change. And so that excites me is it can be as much of a tool for an architect,
Yeah.
particularly early on when they weren't doing their own. Now there's a lot more technology, and we'll get into the present, that allow them to see and visualize stuff, and even scale now with it. So, all right. So what we're gonna, because I don't want anyone to give all the answers away, and I am curious if we're all on the same page on this. What do you think? We'll go this way. We'll put you on the spot first.
Oh, great! That's a
What
great
do you
start.
think are the components that make up great visualization? Just one,
Just
because I think, well, for me, it's more than one. But
Well, there's more than one. There's a big list,
like the
but
key ones.
the key ones is the camera. It's the way you look at the image. I mean, that's if you don't have no matter how good the design is, if you don't have a good camera and you're not showing the design, what's the point of it, right? I've been doing enough images, not architecture included, but that's where I would.
And you're really speaking about the composition, right?
Yeah, the composition.
Like that's one of the classes we teach
Yeah.
architects is the composition.
Yes. There's a moment where you have to understand the image. You have to allow the customer to be able to travel the image in a way that makes sense to them. They can understand the flow. It's not just about making a flow like it made sense to these architects to put the escalator there until they decided like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. So same thing for composition. It's good to have everything in the image, but at the same time, if it just looks like everything is in the image and you don't understand it, what's the point? So
Yeah.
I do think to some extent we take for granted that because we've been doing it so long, and even now some of our DPs like Luke and Steven, they just intuitively know good composition. You don't really. You don't think about it, but I do think it's. I agree. It's one of the most critical.
We just do it now. And people are like, well, why did you come up with that? I don't know. It just I just did it.
It's just balanced.
It just makes sense. It was like.
I'm gonna have to say lighting. I think lighting is something that you have to get right from the beginning, and that's what's gonna, even at the end, if you got the right light at the beginning, the image is going to look good at the end, I think. And it's also going to help achieve photorealism through lighting. So, yeah, that's my
And we can talk a little bit about style. I would say most of the time we're
Yeah.
talking about visualization. For the most part, we are looking for either photoreal or hyperreal, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But not always, right? If we're in an early schematic design, we don't really want to show that because clients will be talking about doorknobs instead of concept.
But I think he's right. I think lighting is the emotion of the image. As much as composition is understanding the image, the lighting is the emotion of the image.
Both of them are the most important. But yeah, also you could say to reflect what the image is for. I think that's really important to show the purpose of the image, to have that, to know that, to make sure to show it, and to know very well, to have very
I think what I'm getting out of what you're saying is that what's the story? Why are we even doing this rendering? What are you trying to communicate?
Your image? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and to know what you're showing. If you have material references, to make sure you reflect that as it should be. And so it looks real. Yeah.
But I think so. The two ones that you guys said always we'll sit down and do a discovery. Okay, why are we doing client, I need 5 renderings and I need them tomorrow or yesterday, right? Same for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Since we're the one calling them,
So you get, you sit down okay, well, you want 5. Why do you want 5? What are we trying to show? And then I want to show the lobby. Okay, cool. What do you want to show in the, what's important about the lobby? What do you want to emphasize? And I think obviously composition and lighting. So then our next one is, well, what would show that, whatever the reason is, well, is it better that that's a dusk shot or a night shot?
Yeah.
So now you're playing with the lighting again, and then it always comes back to
Yeah. And if in case you need to show how the space is going to be used to include people and make sure all the people is well integrated.
Yeah.
So they don't stand out, but they are part of the image.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true too. When we're looking at an image, your eye is drawn to people's faces.
Yeah.
So they're going to look at the people before they actually look at the architecture, which is not necessarily the goal of the image, right? I think it's to communicate some aspect of that. So yeah, it's definitely important. So for me, I'll get to do mine because somehow you guys didn't say it, and you can disagree with it. But for me, it's good design, right? So my job or our job is so much easier when you have a really good design, right? So just imagine you're at a place, there's plenty of beautiful places in Buenos Aires, right? You pull your camera out. If it's beautiful, it's a lot easier to take a good, beautiful picture of it than it is if you find some bad area. And now it's not that you can't take a good picture, but it's a lot more work, right?
a little bit more
So architects that are watching, make our lives easier, do some great work, and then makes our job a lot easier to do great work for you. So
I just didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
So I think that, and then like the last one for me, maybe, or does anybody have any other? I have one other one that I think is pretty critical. Let me change that question. What do you think people think are critical that really aren't in making a great image?
The details. Seriously, the details and the people. The people is the number one thing. When you come out the first time, the first thing you see, you recognize a face because it's instinct. So from then on, all you do is look at people. You see somebody's face, you look at that person. You walk down the street, somebody looks at you, you look at them because your brain saw that, right? And I struggle with the people because they have so much of an important purpose in the image of explaining the size, the scale, the actual purpose of the image, right? Is it a mall? Is it a sports center? Is it a school? You need that. But at the same time, there's such a distractor to the whole thing because all you do is look at the people. I remember we have that guy with a red cap that we kept putting in there. I was like, guys, stop take that guy out. Come on, he's got a red cap. Everybody's going to look at him. The detail for me is, I think, to me, it's the first 3 seconds or the first 3 seconds is where you know if you're gonna like a space or not. And I know I can prove that by just people flipping pages in their big document thing that they look through. They don't look. Oh, let me take 20 minutes on this image. And and it's like, what about this? No, it's about the emotion. It's very important. The emotions. Do I understand the space? Do I know why it's for? And what does it evoke to me when I look at it? It's so. For instance, take a parking garage. The lighting is very important at that point because it's going to show either security or not security. If it's dark, nobody's going to want to go in that section of the building, right? So I think little details. Those are to me the real details, is to make sure that the image gets what you want across. But the fact that a mullion is 2 inch versus an inch and a half or an inch and a quarter is not going to make anybody think twice about the building.
I think it's not important if your image is for marketing. There, details don't matter. You just really want an attractive image, right? But if it's for another purpose, then you need to have the details correct, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But you still need to have a pretty image. So
yeah, of course.
The details matter sometimes, and sometimes they don't matter. But you always need to have a pretty image.
Yeah.
Our evidence to what you said is if we're doing, let's say, first look or second look, right? And we've spent a little bit of time to just make it look good, like at first glance. 100% of the time, you will get less comments.
Yes.
Than when it's like, I'm not going to worry about like the lighting or the sky or whatever. You get that whole page is filled with comments because they just start, like, they're in their mind, they're like, something's wrong with this image. They don't know what it is yet, so they're going to go and pick up every little, like, the
and they don't know how to fix it, which is okay. That's not what they're supposed to do.
Fine. Yeah.
And we're supposed to do that, but then they get confused about the image. Yeah, absolutely. When you're confused about it, then you try to.
The other thing for me that we didn't talk about, but I do want to talk about, I call fairy dust as the importance. So I think it's quite simple to get an image to 85 to 90% quality, right? We can do that pretty quick. Technology's changed a lot to allow that. That last 10 to 15% takes a lot of time and a lot of skill. And that's where, for me, that's what sets apart most of the images in the industry, is they're either willing to spend that time and they have the talent to do it. And until then, it's just going to be an average rendering.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so the last one, well, we were talking about myths a little bit, so details. Did anybody else? I have one, but I'll wait and see.
You could go ahead and steal this. You know the answer. Go ahead.
No, I think details, what I mentioned earlier, that was important.
Yeah. Depending on the purpose. Yeah.
For me, modeling is a little bit less, so people might think that, the model's really critical, right? Because we can't do any work without a model.
Of course.
So in that sense, it is. But certainly, when you talk about the past, we did almost all the modeling because the architects were working in other packages. They weren't compatible. but now we're generally getting that from them. But even still, we can fix so much stuff, fix it in post.
Yeah.
We can fix so much stuff with Photoshop or Affinity for those watching, or Nuke, which is what we use, to hide the stuff that
we don't want to show.
Yeah, that it for me it's a little less critical in there. And then the last thing that we didn't really talk about is materials, which I think actually are pretty critical.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Materials are essential. If it looks flat, you don't. But it goes back to the lighting.
It's
again,
a dance with the lighting,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
this,
Yeah.
Just don't let the lighting affect the material. Rather, let the material affect the lighting.
You're gonna have to explain that.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean by that is that the lighting should not be changed because the material doesn't look right. The material should be changed to look right.
I have a question. So, would you? I know we have in the past. I don't know if we do it anymore. Do an override material on your scene and do your lighting that way first.
Sometimes one time allow, yes, that is a process that we preach.
Yeah.
We prefer that way too, because then at that point,
Then you're looking at the lighting.
The material does
isolated.
not affect the lighting. The lighting affects the material, right?
Yeah.
And so you fix the material, not the lighting. The lighting, if the lighting looks right on a gray box or a gray shaded room, you have the essence of the room at that point. It's just figuring out what the material is going to look like at that point. So it's a lot of people tend to like, oh, that wood doesn't look right, so let me change the lighting. I'm like, well, no, that's gonna break everything else. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So we talked a little bit about why it's important and what makes up great stuff. So let's dive into the history lessons here.
Oh boy.
Okay, so this will probably be different for all of us. We're all different ages and different backgrounds. When you think of early renderings, what comes to mind?
Early renderings. There's a lot of horror shows out there. Really, my first chance to look at renderings was Young Sherlock Holmes. That's where I saw first time like 3D renders that came out on screen, and or even Tron would be, but Tron was more of a trick of the optical trick than it was a rendering. But yes,
when I just said visualization, so my example is not even going to be about a computer. But go ahead.
I mean, I did some visualization back in college too, for architecture. That was my first CG project was actually an architectural visualization, which is very interesting.
Do you still have images from it?
No, no. These images have not only did they burn the 386 that was used. 386 is a very old CPU out there that was from the 90s, and it got so hot that it burned the motherboard and melted it against the computer. That was after a week and a half of rendering 24/7 until he got the whole thing. I somehow got the hard drive and figured out the computer was fun. Got the hard drive out and got the animation out, but yes, that thing burned the computer down. A lot of processing. Those lights were expensive. I mean, I don't know, man. It's a very good question.
How about you, Martin?
First CGI I saw.
Yeah, just what early architectural renderings. I mean, your dad was an architect, right? So
Yeah.
the stuff you may have seen.
I've seen just him working with CAD drawings.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Didn't really see anything 3D back then. So yeah, my first approach to CGI was when I started working at this architectural firm, and they were using Revit, I think, and
Okay, so for me, Revit's already the modern era.
oh, okay.
But go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a difference in age.
Yeah, Revit and I think maybe Lumion.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you want to go there? 3D Studio 2. That was
I'm going to go before that, though.
well-
Then you'll be like, oh, I didn't know we could go that old. But, there's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah, so for me, Lumion as well, and maybe SketchUp and rendering in V-Ray.
Okay.
They didn't look realistic
Yeah.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Vlado,
think-
Vlado, if you catch this, she doesn't mean what she's saying, man.
well, that was years ago, right? Not last
years
week.
ago.
And then some of those
yeah,
really
like
were built
6.
I mean, I think one of the things that Lumion does better is not photorealistic renderings,
No.
right? There's some style that you can
Yeah.
apply to that. And SketchUp, I mean, it's called SketchUp,
Of course. Yeah.
not photo.
Right.
But for me, so when I started back in '96 here at Corgan, the industry standard for at least the Dallas area was a company called Prelim, and they painted, and it was assembly line of painters. Somebody would do the sky, and they'd hand it off. Somebody would do the building. Someone would hand it off. They'd do the cars and the entourage, and it went through this pipeline, and they cranked out. It's funny because I was getting ready for this. I tried to Google them. I was like, they've cranked out so many paintings. I was like, they're going to be all over the web, and I could barely find them, like any images of them, but they were the standard at the time. And then even Corgan had somebody named Gary Angel. Gary, if you're out there watching this, what are the odds? But reach out. I think about you every now and then and wonder what you're doing. But he was our first visualization artist. Before the lab even existed, he worked in a closet. He'd paint with airbrush for his skies, and then he would paint over stuff. We would give him some 3D bases, like just line drawings, that he would use so he didn't have to generate the perspective himself. Sometimes he did. And then he would just paint. So that was our first thing, was just painting stuff, which, you know, at that point, 3D was in its infancy. And you could be like, all right, Gary, that's great. We've changed the design. We need to change these few things. Well, if it's watercolor, forget that, right? You're not going to like paint over your watercolor with any success. So back to the closet and start over from scratch. So the computer was a pretty easy decision to like, oh, I'm tired of starting over from scratch. And it would have been interesting if Prelim had evolved into a 3D studio. They would have had the leg up because everyone was already going to them for all the visualization stuff. So anyway, so who, like in the early days, who inspired you? We're going to go this, we're going to kick it back around the other way now.
Who inspired me? I mean, I think what inspired me back then was maybe movies.
Yeah.
To see how the scene was built, to go to the theater as well. But if I had to say what inspires me today the most, I would say my team as a producer.
Yeah.
I get to learn a lot from them. They all are artists with different backgrounds and point of view, and it's really nice to have that. And yeah.
Okay, well, you can't say movies and not give us a movie. So they were literally yesterday filming in here about there's a movie episode. It won't be as good as this one, but you should watch that as well. So you got to give me at least one or two movies. They don't have to be the best movies of all time.
Okay, so Star Wars.
Star Wars, all right. Now, well, you're young enough. Like, what do you mean by Star Wars?
No, like the first ones. But can I say?
Oh, wait, hold on. The first episodes or the first episode?
I really like Interstellar.
Okay, yeah.
I really like Nolan's work and the trilogy of Batman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are my favorites.
Cool.
Great answer, by the way. I love the whole team thing. Just stole the show right there.
Okay.
They deserve it, though. They deserve the accolade.
Well, a bit unconventional also. I'm going to have to say music. So, in a way, I think music can relate to architecture because I think both are going to share, they both share like the same elements, like balance, texture, rhythm, harmony, articulation. And I think they both need like an artist to be able to give it form and express it. And I play guitar myself. My brother also. So we used to have a band when we were young. And I think...
sorry, what was the name of the band?
Oh, we got to find that on the web. We got to find that on the web. Somebody,
we're going to cut to the video of the
It was something about an axe. I can't remember. It was like a heavy metal band.
Oh, we really have to cut that. We have to cut that.
We had long hair.
Definitely we're going to have to...
we got to find that. We got to find that.
Right, cool.
So just... the patience and the time that it takes to learn an instrument, or even learn a 3D program. I think that is it takes a lot of practice, and it's really inspiring. And I think.
So was there a musician that inspires you?
Well, I'll say a fancy one first. Jans Tiersen, which is a French pianist. He is really good. I love music. I think he did the music for MLE,
Nice.
the movie.
That's why I recognize the name. Okay.
And
I'm pretty sure we're sitting here with
Yeah,
the
with
actors
Emily.
from Marvel.
We're sitting with Emily right now, but sorry.
And
We're all trying to act cool, but
Yeah. We're all starstruck. We're gonna get her autograph when this is done.
and then the non-fancy one, I'm just gonna say Metallica.
All right, cool.
nice.
I didn't see that coming. The music. I
Yeah.
like that though. That's a great answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it is.
Well, interestingly enough, I first wanted to be more into physics and stuff like that, architecture, and Leonardo. Well, I'm not gonna say it right, of course. Leonardo da Vinci was probably one of my first inspiration, and then that led into Frank Lloyd Wright back in the days. I was looking into going. I mean, seriously, I was doing technical drawing because I wanted to go in school over there in college. But then the real guys that got me thrown into production, the movie world, would be Phil Tippett, Dennis Murin, Stan Winston, Ray Harryhausen, Ray Bradbury. All these guys really inspired me to really understand storytelling, using whatever you can find to make something, bring something to life. Really, that's what really inspired me really at beginning to be in the movies too, and really my inspiration was to just be invisible at this point. I really like to make movies that you don't know that the effects exist. I've got a few of those out there that people like, where are the effects? And I'm like, good. That means you didn't see them. But yeah, those would be my guys. I mean, I got the puppeteer. I've got the Dennis was the technical guy. Stan was the practical guy. I mean, you get all these little nuggets.
Did you get to meet any of those people?
I met Phil. I met Dennis. I met Phil. I met Ray.
Ray Harryhausen came here. Once
Yeah,
to
I have a picture with him over shoulders, and I met Ray Bradbury as well before.
Cool.
You know, the last few years and stuff. Those were great moments for me. Funny enough, I met Ray Bradbury at the same time I met Phil Tippett, which. Sorry, Phil, but it made Phil less of a star. I was like, I got Ray right here. But it was a great moment to meet these guys, shake their hands, and so
cool. So I was preparing for this too, and I was trying to think back, and I remember a trip that I took to Amsterdam, and I went to 2 museums. I think I actually did them in the same day, and it was Picasso and Rembrandt.
Oh, yeah.
And I not a Picasso fan. I feel like some 3-year-old kids could do some equivalent work. I know that's not true, but I was at the time I was doing it. We were doing visualization, and still the goal for most of the renderings, right, is photorealism or hyperrealism. And I went to Rembrandt's museum, which is like a tiny house, and Picasso's is like a mall. And I was in this tiny house just crammed in, but you were looking at the paintings, and he was doing stuff then that we still are trying to do on the computer with lighting and the way he framed compositions and led your eye through the image and stuff like that. And so, I had not met him. I'm not that old. But I've been to his house.
Yeah,
it's about as close.
I have to disagree on the Picasso thing because. I think he was one of my inspiration when I was in learning about art and stuff. And I in fact, my whole marketing year in college was around his art. So I love the guy.
Well, I'd say in context. So as an architect from my thesis, I did the Holocaust Museum in D.C. And I spent a day in that. And then I went to the Vietnam Memorial. And both those two things should be a powerful experience. But there's so much energy from the Holocaust Museum that you're just drained when you left that there was nothing left to give when I went to the other. And so maybe that was the same experience with the...
Yeah, because I can only imagine Rembrandt's little house there, but it must have been like, oh my God, so much to...
Yeah. So, all right, so, this will turn into a 3-hour episode, so I know...
It's all right. It's all good. You got
to speed things up, we'll do some rapid fire stuff. Okay. So your first rendering, everybody picturing it that you did, it can be in school. Ooh, if it's in school, that changes my answer.
It's in school, actually.
What software did you use?
I think we use SketchUp SketchUp, V-Ray.
Okay, so the good news is that software still exists.
Yeah.
SketchUp was the modeling package. V-Ray was the engine.
Yeah, and then Photoshop.
Okay, for post.
A lot of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that
to make it look
that's
good.
a big myth for me as well, is that people take what comes out of render and then they'll send that off as final.
Yeah.
It's like you have this great package, and in 5 minutes, I promise you can make it better.
Of course. Yeah.
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 So-
for sure.
Yeah. First rendering, I didn't do it myself. I sold it, and my
But you've done some production, like, right? Like, or
I'm
no?
just Photoshop painting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never knew I would end up using these tools, but I learned them.
Yeah.
But my colleague Andres, he's the one that did the first rendering at the studio, and it was an office space that the view out the window was the Opera House in Sydney. And that first rendering, he used 3D Max, V-Ray, and also Photoshop.
Okay, cool. All those also still exist.
Yeah.
So, sorry, throwback. But if you're doing Photoshop and you're working, are you listening to music?
Always. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So I think that ties back to like just kind of those creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps you
Inspiration.
concentrate. And
Yeah.
All right, get ready, guys. We're going back in time now.
Honestly, I don't remember the name of it. It was on Mac only, and you could only use Illustrator to create shapes, and then it would extrude them in Revolution. And then I had a full 3D model that was all like, I mean, it was just Revolution basically. But that would be my first rendering. My real first rendering of visualization was in 3D Studio 2.
Okay.
So that was my first animation as well.
Yeah.
Funny enough, but yeah, that was that was the package I used, and there was no Photoshop. Well, I've been using Photoshop since 1992. At version 2, when it was crashing when you put 2 layers on top of each other.
I mean, Adobe's actually, it's funny because they're not a 3D
No,
shop, but they've definitely been a part of
the
process
the
from
whole
day
time.
one. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
You always had to finish the image, right? Like you said, 5 minutes, but you need that 5 minute. But yeah, those are I wish I remembered the name of it. It worked with Illustrator. It was something like Vertigo or something. It was just doing revolution of a shape, and then you could get like a bottle or a vase or things like that.
So mine was Vertis Walkthrough. Anybody heard of it? Probably not. But you could do basic shapes, right? So rectangles,
Yeah.
spheres, that was about it. But then you could put enough of those together to make a space. And then I actually animated. I don't know really how it did it because this was a long time ago to do that. And then, yeah, it probably took forever to render. Well, everything took forever to render back then. But, and that was in school for me. So back then, what was like when you first started, what was the hardest thing about the job?
Visualization or
Yeah.
Making things look good.
I mean, mainly at the studio, I think the hardest thing was to build a team to get to the talented team we have to get today.
Yeah.
I
So
think
just
it's,
finding the audience, surrounding yourself
yeah,
with the right people.
like the right people. Yeah. Takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, from the business part,
Yeah.
the hardest thing back then was to find clients because we didn't have so much ways to reach out. It was only email or cold calling people or meeting in person. And also for the design process
Yeah,
today,
of course.
we have more tools now where we can communicate and reach out to people. So I think finding clients and for the design process, I think both, the hardest part was communication.
I'm guessing a lot of our audience are architects, so
Yes.
they have received those emails, possibly from you.
Many of them.
Because I get a couple a day. They're just 3D shops from around the world.
Yes.
I got one of those.
Yeah.
What was the question again? Sorry.
The hardest
the
thing
hardest
about back then.
Making things look good.
Yeah.
It was the hardest thing. The technology was, I mean, we were able to make it look good.
Yeah.
But man, did it take a lot of energy to get there.
Yeah, I don't remember putting like negative lights in the
Oh yeah,
floor
oh yeah.
before
Oh,
GI.
yeah. Just remove
So,
lights, yeah.
For all those people, a negative light, you're literally like
Sucking
putting
the
instead
air,
of
the
putting a
light out.
value of 1 to make it super bright, you're putting -1 so that it would make things dark in that area.
It was using shadow map instead of ray trace shadows. I mean,
Reflections if you were game engines.
oh yeah, and then how many reflection you could allow yourself because the more you asked bounces, the more longer it took. Yeah, making things look good was probably the hardest thing, and patience. You had to find patience, and for those of you who know me, patience is not my forte, and I sit on camera. That's good. But I mean, finding the
Session
patient.
is therapy.
Yeah, therapy now.
Yeah.
But finding patience was the hardest thing, because when you press render, it was a guessing game. You didn't know if it was gonna crash, if it's gonna render anything, if it was gonna look good, if it's
How
gonna look
much was it
decent,
going to
how much thing, and every time you're like, oh no, and then you'd have to go back and press again and go back to that lottery ticket, like what's gonna happen next? And obviously the art was all to figure out how to control those parameters and those variables to get to the point where you know exactly what you're gonna get out, but it was taking a lot of
When that was,
energy.
for me, I agree. Like the actual rendering process was the most frustrating, because you couldn't do any. Like that was the time you couldn't do anything except
Yeah.
watch things go wrong.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
hey, it looked great on my screen when I previewed it in a very rough version,
Yeah.
and now I'm sending it to the farm, and 10 machines are rendering it great, and 2 machines, which I don't know which 2 they are,
Yeah.
are rendering black squares.
Oh, yeah.
And so now we're gonna have to send this thing over and over and over again.
Until we figure out what machines are the black ones. And
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, that was it. And then as a designer, I felt like I couldn't use it when I was an architect or studying to be one. The tool set wasn't very good. Like now, if you think of like a Zaha Hadid building or all these really
Yeah.
organic, great pieces of architecture, like you couldn't do that on a machine.
yeah.
So if you wanted to do your stuff in 3D, you had to design something that was like boxes. Basically, you had 90-degree angles, and you certainly weren't doing curve shapes until NURBS and other
Yeah,
things
right.
opened up the door for that stuff. So I didn't really like it because it wasn't a great tool. Like the pencil wasn't as limiting as the computer was back then for me. So,
Oh, the revelation of nerves. That's bring
well,
us-
I think that's another good one. Is what do you think, like from that day to now? What are some of the big? I mean, obviously the CPUs are better. You have more RAM, but what, like technology-wise? I mean, we went to SIGGRAPH for years, right?
yeah.
And there was like some amazing groundbreaking stuff happening year after year. But
Yeah, which is funny, because when you look at having had the chance to be around for that long, what's interesting is seeing how things go back to what they used to be. We used to have real-time rendering in back in &86, and people were like, no, let's render, make it pretty, and so on
you
and so
mean real
forth.
time when you hit the button and you just watch it?
No. I mean real time. Or I remember this formula for cloth that was like 2 miles long, and then suddenly somebody says, "How did it start?" Because all it is, it's fixing of this, and they went back to this, and suddenly, oh, look, it works. And it's just 5 parameters, you're done. It's a lot of going back and forth until you get. It's all our career has been about, I think, fixing the NURBS. The NURBS was to fix the polygons, because they were not curvy enough. They were very faced it and sharp and and not pretty. And then suddenly the NURB went crazy with the NURBNet. We're talking about Mighty Joe Young. We're talking about Stuart Little. It was 3000 or the Godzilla with Matthew Broderick in it. It is thousands and thousands of NURB patches together. It was just network nightmare of. And now we're back to polygons with the resolutions, and back to this, and the polygons are much better. So it's very interesting how
I think you can hide it now with some texture work. Right?
Well, but even then you can just do subdivision, and then your polygon just curves. It's just it's very interesting how we just circle back when subdivision existed in the 70s. It's just that they didn't think it was efficient.
Yeah.
So they decided to fix it some other way. NURBS came out, and then so on and so forth.
So you two didn't start in the Stone Age like we did. So what significant things do you think have had an impact between when you started and now?
I think that today we have a lot of integration between different softwares, and that's really helpful to make the process more efficient. To have a plugin of, I don't know, maybe, can I name him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can send us a check for whoever she's.
Okay. So, yeah, any plugins from Adobe in Max. And I think we also talked about this earlier. When the architects export like the Revit model, and you don't have to model it, you can just import it today, and just start working from there.
Cool. For me, GI was a big one, right? Like GI, subsurface
For
scattering.
lighting, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, before GI, nothing ever looked real, and the first time you saw it, you're like, "Whoa!" like, this looks like a photo, right? And you
Yes,
could actually
yes.
start really doing stuff. So that was a huge.
Also known as Radio City.
Well, actually, the first time I used it, I think that's the name of the software. Was pretty awesome. So yeah, that was a pretty big one for me.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're gonna move into modern times, right? So, which I think is actually we're in a really interesting place.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the turning point right now. We played with these things. We patched them for 20 years. Now we're at the point where now they're patched, they're working. We're all happy. The integration, communication between countries are
Yeah.
no more bounds. But now
Plenty of server space most of the time.
most of the time, yes, most of the time, a lot of server space. But now I think we're at that turning point where is AI fit? Where does AI fit in? The real time. What does it really work and doesn't work? What's the time to do it? Are we out of a job because AI is taking over? I don't think so. I think AI is a partner to us, but at the same time, it's a lot of big question. We don't really know exactly what the impact is for the next 5 years because we're just starting to quote unquote play with it.
Yeah.
It's been a while we've been playing with these technologies, but right now everybody's getting to play with it. So we'll see really what happens tomorrow based on what's happening today.
Yeah, I think it's very important to take it not as a threat, but as a tool, and learn how to use it and how to incorporate it in our workflow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think also VR is a big one.
Yeah.
And we're already kind of using it, but it still hasn't kicked off yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with that software. Collaborating more in real time with clients, but through VR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our experience really has been is like, the renderings are great because they give you a really good representation of what the building's going to be like. But if you put the headset on, you get scale. So, we put people in to give the illusion of scale. But like even this building, right, that we're in now, when we used VR during the design phase, and I had no idea how big that box is that sits up on the, I love it.
Yeah.
But like we stood in our courtyard area and you looked up at that thing and you're like, wow, this is going to be really dynamic, really. And I could have done 50 renderings and I would have never felt that way.
Never get that.
So I think that's what we see. And that's why we encourage, like we've had a designer for an airport put it on and they totally changed all their signage. They just had them scaled differently. Like, and on the screen, they seem proportional to the space. But when they put the headset on, they're looking, it's just not a natural. And so they went in and scaled it down and it was awesome and amazing. And so it's a great design tool.
It is. I think it's still not, it's still kind of uncomfortable to have to wear, those headsets. I think they have to make them like more sophisticated, more comfortable to wear.
To have a look at.
Right. I mean, ideally, or even not like.
Or or no headset at all, right?
Yeah.
Just lens or a tape, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for us in our studio, we're at a weird point where you have this real time stuff, which you need because we have to generate stuff faster and faster in the traditional, which it's weird to say traditional about something that's really only been around for less than 20 years or 20 years ish. So we do some things like literally at the beginning of every job, we come in and we have to make a decision. Are we going to do this with a real-time engine or are we going to do this in our traditional, max V-Ray methodology? And we're doing more and more where it's a hybrid actually between the two. And so we'll see how long that lasts because I think at some point one will win out, like when the real-time engines, that's the promise, right, is that all of it can be done then. You can do more stuff on the fly and get more. But
it's called evolution, right?
Yeah.
We just go along, we tag along, and we're bringing back the evolution of the real time with getting all our layers back that we lost when we went to real time. Now they're getting back. We're getting tools that gives us all our control back that we miss to do that 5%-10% at the end. Because even if you have real time, you're in the same place as if you're in 3D. When you press render, it's like, oh, it's done. No, there's still a couple of tweaks.
The Photoshop stuff's a lot harder when it's a real time.
Yeah, exactly.
At least currently.
It is, yeah. It is in its I called it in its toddler years, so it's just poking everything until it figure out what it is, but it'll grow.
Well, we can
something.
thank gaming.
Yes, absolutely. Gaming.
Like there is this nice crossover between film and gaming and architectural visualization.
Yeah.
And when I started, it was like film was up here. That was the best, right? Best quality work, and then you had gaming, pretty far below it actually. I mean, well, I'm old enough that I played Pac-Man, so it was really far below it. And then you had architectural rendering at the bottom, right? And I think if you look at the people that are doing the best architectural visualization, I think it's on par with certainly those other industries, and the gaming is phenomenal. The visuals that are coming out of that stuff now. So.
Why? Thank you. I appreciate the compliment there.
Well, okay. So we've been talking about all the good stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think has hurt the industry the most?
Time. People want everything yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes down to the architect. I'm not even blaming the architect. The architect have a client that says, I want a building tomorrow. You're like, hold on. We have to think about this. We have to appreciate what we're doing. We have to understand the space we're doing it in. And so time has been the thing that we've been chasing for a long time now. I think it used to be.
See what you did.
Yeah.
You've been chasing it for a long time.
Yeah, I didn't think about that one. But the point I'm trying to make is I remember the first commercial that came in, 6 months was not a bad idea. And we're talking a long time ago here. But
this was before you had any conversations with architects.
Yeah.
So but 6 months, forget it.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that 6 months, well, today a commercial is a week now, you know. So, but I remember 6 months was not something scary to tell people. Today, a week, you're like, a week? Yes, a week. Give us some minute here. And
well, I think what they don't realize even in that week is like that's with your feedback.
Yeah.
And we're going to be waiting half that week on you.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where I'm saying the time is what we've been chasing, because it's just we're running out of it. And that's, and the real time is pushing those limit even tighter, right? Well, I saw you on your computer yesterday. Why isn't it done now? You're like, well, hold on.
Yeah, it looked good. Like I do that to Brandon all the time. Like, I'm ready to see the video now, you know, and it's like, well, it's not ready for you to see it. I know you're ready to see it.
Yeah, I think that maybe in the past there were fewer studios and fewer professionals that provided these services.
Yep.
And so it was more like an exclusive service, and you had more time to do it, and it costed more.
Yep.
But now the market is like oversaturated with so many studios and freelancers and professionals that offer these services, and also the technology has advanced. So now people expect to have this done quicker and cheaper
and
also,
in a great quality.
And a good quality.
Yeah.
So I think if you find a studio that is reliable and that offers like a good quality service, I think you should
partner with them.
And even if you have to spend a little more, it's better to have a reliable one.
We found like the good ones, you don't really end up spending more because the bad ones are going to nickel and dime you to death anyway. Right. And by the time you're done, you're like, we spent more actually than the other group that did good work and we had a good relationship with. Yeah. It's interesting because, while we can complain about it, there's not much you can do about the fact that the stuff you were talking about. I think at one point it really was a service, and we still think of ourselves as storytellers, and that's a creative service, but that's not the way we're viewed. They're going to buy a new pair of shoes, and they need 10 new pairs of shoes, and it's just a pen or a piece of paper, and it's become a product, and it's not a service, even though really at the end of the day, yes, we're giving you an image at the end, but it's that service level.
The image like we talked about earlier comprise a lot more than just a piece of paper with color on it.
There's a lot of back and forth.
There's emotion that goes into this. There's a lot of there's a design. There's an idea that has to be transmitted and understood. There's a lot of stuff that goes into an image that, you're right, people see it as just a piece of paper with color, but no, there's more.
All right. Well, I have one. We'll see how this topic goes over and if it makes it in the final. So for me, early in my career, you had a bunch of different people making the software, right? So you had a lot of tools to choose from. There was this thing called Softimage out there that they had some geniuses working at.
A lot of geniuses out there.
You had Maya, you had Max, You just had a number of those things, and they were all pushing each other because they really were competition.
And,
right?
and most of them came from Canada. Just so we're clear about the geniuses, but
So, like, literally every year you were super excited to go to SIGGRAPH or NAB or whatever because, like, somebody was going to blow you away because they had to, because if they didn't, their competitor
next guy was going
right?
to do it. Yeah.
Well, they've all been consolidated, and even when you finally see someone, I used to think Autodesk would literally look at what we were purchasing and go, oh, Corgan just bought that plugin. We're going to go buy them as a company. And so for me, it feels like, I mean, I'm not in Max every day like I used to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know for a fact, but it doesn't feel like it's made the same leaps and bounds that it used to make when there was that competition on the market.
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right on this. I think what's happening right now is we've hit a plateau. I think there's features. Don't get me wrong, guys. I know there's still some of those geniuses that I know that are still working in those softwares.
We have friends at all those places.
Yeah, we do.
We want them to keep their job.
Yeah. But that said, I think there's we haven't seen, except in the real time rendering and so on and so forth. Other than that,
that's where you're seeing all these pop-ups, right? You have Lumion, you have Enscape, you have, was it D5?
D5, you have
Twin Motion.
Keyshot.
Right now it feels that way for them,
Yeah.
and they're all competing, and we're seeing those products
Who's the first
better because of it.
It's funny because now we're talking about pet tracing, which is when we did ray tracing back in the days. It's we're just now it's in real time, right? This is a big talk now, I think, like I said, that Max is not, or I hate to say just Max because it's not just Max, but there's not a lot of tools out there that are pushing the status quo.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that it really is technology. Like once they solved some of those problems, right? Like, I mean, at one point, water was impossible to do, right?
Yeah,
I do still think people is still a challenge, particularly on our level, right? Like, yes, in films, although like your mind just knows when it's not real, right? And I think for us, it's the hardest because we don't have 2 years to work on a 3-second clip to make this person look real that's not real. We have to do 5 minutes of animation
in 2 weeks, literally.
Yeah. So I think that's an area that, like, I mean, how many videos have we done where we talk about, like, well, do we want white silhouettes so that the people aren't distracting, or the client's like, well, everybody walks like a zombie, or and it's really distracting to the architecture and the message and why we're trying to put it out.
I think you're right. I think accessibility is what people are focusing now, is how much people can access it. How many AI, for instance, is a very good example. Open it to the market, but make it in a way that people can use it, right? And I think this is what people are focusing on, is just the accessibility of whatever those tools are. Back in the days, is who's got the best tool to get the best, whose movie is going to be, the software is going to be behind because they have the tool that nobody else has, right? Now it's using Maya, for instance. Using Maya, and it's.
Did you give thumbs up because you still have a couple of pieces of code from Softimage in Maya now?
No, not in Maya. But Maya now is just a container of tools that people write. So it's more accessible to people to be able to write their own plugin and so on and so forth. But I think accessibility is probably what we're focusing on lately, for sure, as far as I'm.
So if there's like if you have your magic wand or whatever, you choose to create magic and create something that could help you with your job, what would it be?
I think that the best would be to read clients' minds.
A mind reader.
Yeah, a mind reader.
You might not actually want that.
Yeah, I need it. Yeah.
No, it's not a good idea. It's a great idea.
I think it would accelerate the process for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So better communication.
Better communication. Yes.
How about you?
I think some kind of program where you can take a markup, an image that's marked up with comments, and just put it in, and for it to just pop out and have everything adjusted.
All right, so now we may be talking about AI.
Yeah, no, that's AI right there. AI reads your comment and just fixes it for you.
All right, so this has been probably our longest Square episode ever, and they'll never let me host again. So let's with that jump straight into the future. So where do you guys think this thing's going, the industry? And are we specifically talking about AI, or is there something else you see out there?
No, I mean, I think it's not only AI. I think it's just being more having being able to interact more with the renderings, in real time, changing things in real time through VR, and then of course AI. It's going to be much more text based, so you're going to have to be able to do text to image, text to video. That's going to be integrated somehow with the softwares that we use.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see how it plays out.
So are you guys playing with any of that stuff now?
Yes, we've we tested Midjourney, Veros for Revit.
Yep.
And
we also use like the generative fill in Photoshop.
Photoshop,
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your success been like with that? I played around with it for a few days, so I have my own opinion. But
Yeah, I mean it's great. Mainly when we are working on painting jobs, it makes things faster for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I still feel like it has. I mean, technology will move fast, but I feel like it has a. I feel like this is like the alpha version, not even the beta.
Oh
yet.
yeah.
With that, so it's been great for me to make fun of people and like do silly little pictures, but in actual work production, by the time I get what I wanted out of it, I could have just photoshopped that thing myself. Like you're like, oh, let me type this in and like have it do this, and you're like, no, it's not even close. And you type it again, like better, still not.
Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes later, I've written a lot. I have a paragraph of text, but I was like, man, I could have just done that.
Yeah, of course, depending on what you have to do. But
Yeah, I would say immersion. Immersion, I think, is the one that would make. I keep going to those shows like Devs on Hulu. Rango, and the Hulu show Dev. It's all about immersion. You just everything gets created in front of you from your thought process and understanding what, because of you're that person, then certain things appear in front of you, just like your ads, but now your ads are now interacting with you without being an ad, right? Yeah. So, but immersion is probably the biggest thing that I think is going to be a big game changer.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot more, we're building immersive spaces, and we're seeing a lot more. I mean, I think to some extent, like the LED walls.
Absolutely. No, I think
as we said Van Gogh, I realized I did not go to the Picasso Museum in Amsterdam because that doesn't exist. It's the Van Gogh Museum. Whose work is not as elementary as Picasso's, in my opinion. So have you guys done any playing with any immersive work? I mean, VR primarily, or
mainly VR.
Yeah.
We've tested a few projects, and we're able to walk through changed materials, textures, but we haven't really had time to go any further in our exploration.
All right, we're going to wrap this thing up with what excites you most about the future, and everybody has to answer.
Okay, I'm gonna let Mark answers first.
Let's put you on the spot. You didn't get this question ahead of time, did you?
I want to see what happens with AI. See how we're gonna adapt. And like Julie said, I see it like another tool, and not a threat. So definitely want to. I mean, there's got to be an artist behind. So I want to see what's gonna happen with AI. That's exciting for me.
Yep. Cool.
I think, anyways, we will always need an artist and an art director to guide the AI to have the result you want.
2 words for you guys: Skynet.
Well, then we won't have to worry about it.
We don't have to worry about anything at that point. No, seriously, AI for sure. What I want to see is again the AI with immersion and VR and HoloLens and augmented reality. I want to see what happens next. Really, when does it become that the software decides for you what you need to see when you need to see it, right? Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, where it can really help with the tasks that no one really wants to do anyway.
Yeah.
Render wrangling. There's plenty of
rotoscoping.
Yeah, there's plenty of things that we do to make great products. But I mean, I'm excited to tell stories. Like that's what I got in the business for.
Absolutely.
That hasn't changed. The tool set has, and I'm sure will. I don't have the paintbrush, but whatever tool it is, it'll be in the realm of telling hopefully compelling stories. So. With that, We're going to wrap this sucker up, 2 hours later or however long it's been.
That's all, folks.
Join us, or probably not me because it's been so long. Join us next time on TheSquare, where I'm sure Brandon will be hosting an amazing episode. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.